Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order. I did not print my
I didn't either.
agenda. But I think Ben's name is on it more than mine. So if you'd like to start us off.
Yeah, just right in there. Scott Guthrie called the meeting to order at
Okay, so
6:31.
Mike is here. Is Mike going to take the minutes?
Michael, are you okay to take the minutes tonight?
I am. I'm all set up for it. I've already started.
Thank you.
Give that-
My pleasure. Thank you for covering last week.
Oh, you got one?
I have one.
Oh, Okay. So attendance, Michael, could you please take attendance?
Sure. Robert Brennan.
Here.
Scott Copley.
Here.
Scott Guthrie.
Here.
Jim Humphrey.
Here.
Brad Meyer. Not present. Ben Para.
Yeah,
Sarah Repose. Not present. Michael Stevens, I'm here. And Ted Tracy. Not present.
Okay. You want to do it or me?
The emergency exit is, the closest exit is to the door on our right, to the back and out the doors to your left.
Fantastic, thank you. Now we call for the approval of the minutes of February 16th of 2022. Did everyone
I
get a
did.
copy by email?
Yes.
Are there any- Are there any corrections?
Yes, Jim Humphrey.
What's the name that he used?
Jim Thorpe,
Jim
the
Thorpe.
Olympian.
Wow.
That's
Did
kind
you
of
ever
a
get your gold
Well,
medals
this is
back?
an Olympic event right here. Charter
decathlon,
review.
decathlon
Think
guy.
so? Yeah,
Yeah, no, I could have thought of worse names.
okay. So
Usually they use plural on Humphreys a lot.
in old business,
We gotta vote on the.
oh yeah,
Yeah,
excuse me.
yes.
I'll make a motion that we accept them with the correction for Jim.
Motion is made
Thorpe.
as corrected.
And I will second that.
And Mr. Thorpe seconds them.
Jim
All in
Thorpe.
favor?
I,
Aye.
I,
So old business, last week, we were talking about powers and duty, and that is how the charter review runs itself, who can be on it. And we talked about elected officials, and everybody seemed to think that there might be a discrepancy there. Today, I got what I had asked the manager for, and I wanted to review them, so I have everything here. And I'd like everyone to get a copy, but I would like 2 copies for myself and 2 copies for Sarah.
What did you get? Because I don't.
I
think it's
have-
copied on it.
I have the 1972 minutes,
Oh, wonderful.
or the 1972 charter, and they did a very thorough job. It has every resolution passed by the town onto the state to ratify the charters. In many cases, it has the name of the people that are on these charters. That were on the charter commission. It's going to be some pretty good reading for you because there were only 15 charter changes since 1972. So I was pretty close when I thought that in the past. Several of them are the same thing. They talked about 7 council people. They talked about mayor. They talked about a bunch of other things. And you'll find it as good reading. And like I said, I want to get 2 copies for myself, 2 for Sarah. Make sure you have one. It's really good reading. And it's a lot of reading. So along that, I think after everybody reads, most of this stuff, you'll see that this very issue, the article that we're under right now, 3.14, is they've addressed this several times. They've addressed, vacancies several times, and we have been talking about vacancies a lot. So I just want to make sure that everybody gets these copies. I happen to grab some stuff from the Board of Canvassers, I promised you. last week that I would get you copies of the ballots from the special elections, which I have. And there were a couple that have the charter questions on them too, that were like kind of separate from the ballot in one instance. And then another one where the ballot questions are on the back of the ballot, where a lot of people either fail to turn it over or turn it over and see the amount of language in there and probably don't act on it. So that's like that undervote for charter questions. So many less people answer those questions than they do vote for a candidate. And one other thing I wanted to bring up that I found pretty interesting is when we organized and the solicitor's office said we could be okay as an ad hoc committee. That was pretty poor advice, because if we'd have done anything, and this is one of the reasons why I asked, once we had a 9-member commission, to reaffirm the votes or change the votes for the commission members, because we would have been a violation of state law, the Rhode Island State Constitution, Section 6, Article 13, Section 6, and that explains how every city works with a charter commission. So this kind of dates quite a ways back when you think about it, if it's in the Constitution. So I'm glad that I called for that vote, and I was just thinking about it last week, and I said, I'm going to take a look at this. So I went through and I looked at the Constitution, and it's in there, charters for cities and towns. It's got the amendments and everything. So this is home rule, and here we are. So I don't know if anybody has a whole lot to speak of tonight on either of the titles that I brought up. It's entirely up to you. We have we're short 3 people, and I'd like to have them included with everything that we do. I just want to be for voting, but I'd like to have, their comments and conversation too. So with that, does anybody have any other input they'd like to discuss on either 3.14 or 1520, which I was just discussing the amendment for the charter. I probably didn't mention that. So are there any other
I'm
suggestions?
trying to think with section 1520, there might be more feedback in those older
Yes.
amendments.
As a matter of fact, I think that you're going to see in this one of these ballots here, the one that has the yellow, I think that was the year that it passed,
Mhm.
which would have been 1999. I'll let you go through these. You're going to see it. I think 2 of the changes that deal with the amendment procedure on the ballots. And the other ballots that I have in there are. Someone put- Did meet that. Oh, okay. Thank you. So these are the questions that we had been discussing, that we talked about. We thought it was a good idea to strike this, all the legalese language. So that I believe was under the last charter review under Chairperson Shockley, or the previous one. So if you would prefer just to read a little bit more, we can read a little bit more and reconvene next week. If you have any other things that you'd like to add to our discussion, we can do that. Bob was kind enough to provide us with these 2 things that we were speaking about last. Oh, wait a minute now. One of them is filling a vacancy, and the other is powers and duties. So he put the local law and the state law together so that we know the difference between the 2. And so one of them was the collective bargaining for the ratification, and the other one was filling vacancies. Like I said, you're going to see a lot of attempts at filling vacancies because it happens, and when you can't get people to run, they usually address it by the charter, and here we are. Not being able to get people.
This is all the same, just a bunch of copies, okay.
Yeah, there's copies, so I'll take those, I can give those to Sarah and Mike and
I have one question on the issues. So I think we could read up on 15.2 with regards to other folks who can be on the charter commission. That was one of our questions last week. And we'll study up on that. And then the other question you were talked about a lot was the regarding the ability of the town council to approve the school budget versus state law, if I'm not
that should be
mistaken.
right on the top. of
And
that.
that's what this is all about.
So you have the charter language and the state law directly underneath it for both, actually for both of those.
Oh, and state laws, yeah, okay, good, perfect. So we could look at this on our own. The point
Flipping
being,
around
can,
Books left and right.
yeah, the point being, can the town council legally also ratify that school committee related labor agreement?
Right.
Because they're elected as opposed to being appointed, if I
Correct.
recall. Okay, so make sure I got that square. I know I had one other thing. I can mention it because it was, I don't know who brought it up. Maybe somebody brought up that just handed out that other budget process
Mhm.
from another town.
That was Ted.
Was it Ted? Yeah, which was, I poured through that. It was very, very interesting.
That
And it
was
was-
South Kingstown. I think it
I
was.
thought it was North Kingston.
North Kingstown, I think it was.
And maybe that,
No, I
North
read North
Narragansett.
Kingstown today.
I think it was North
South
Kingstown. I was trying to remember. I couldn't remember myself. I think you're right.
I took a look at North Kingstown's and that's a pretty good one.
I
That,
could,
that kind of addresses the things about having less conflict when you're trying to pass a budget and a
right.
sound policy and a sound procedure. I actually wanted to print a couple of copies of that. So I asked Ted to send me it again. He goes, he said, this is just the language that I had from there. And it wasn't, and it was an email communication, so.
Because he handed this out the last meeting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He said, he gave us the language, but his proposal is similar to that. So it's not that solid.
Oh,
language.
so he has a proposal in addition to this example.
Yeah, he's,
Okay.
he's kind of like using that example to
Excellent.
frame the way that we do the budget process, like another town does,
Right.
but not word for word.
Because what I was doing, and this is something, this is my own homework. I was so interested in it. I looked at our process to try to keep it simple, step by step. These are things we can do and present here when I've really digested a little bit more. And then I just compared it to that other town, and it was really quite interesting, you know, and I'm still learning a few things, how our process works and how their process, to your point, gets you to an end state, where ours could go almost infinitely. I think, if I'm reading our town charter right, and infinite's probably not a good thing. There's
Yeah,
got to be a way to
if
have
you-
closure.
Pass it.
2020, we had 3
Oh, I know.
referendums and then we ran out of road and just passed a 2021 budget. So.
I'm gonna need to understand that better. I remember last year, it was like, there was votes going on constantly, and there were very poor turnouts for them. I know the financial town meeting used to be a place where you could literally like vote on it in a
Make-
big giant room.
Make motions from the floor to
It
revise
was.
the budget
But I'll tell you,
without any.
in
I
the,
went to one of those.
in the financial
Like
town
so far
meetings
it was down.
as a whole, there still wasn't a very large turnout. There's probably 200 people, and you think that there's 30,000, 36,000 people in the town.
Yeah.
There's only 2,000 people, less than 1,000 people there, right?
Right.
Depending on what's up
Yeah.
for the budget.
Right, right.
But
You're
it's
gonna have
a
to
great
have a
subject for
budget
us,
issue that,
for sure.
you know, we packed the auditorium or the gymnasium
But
at the
still,
high school.
Oh, I
Yeah,
remember that.
but that's still less than 1,000 people, and it's relative.
Exactly right.
Yeah. You're right. It's a very, very small turnout. And then even at that meeting, you had, it packed the gymnasium, but halfway through it, half the people left.
People were leaving, yeah, they get
People
fed
were
up
leaving,
moving.
and then the other vote came up and it didn't pass, and they were like, wait a minute, we voted for that. No, you voted to the amendment for the school for the money, and then or whatever it was, and then they left for the actual vote to increase the
Right.
tax.
I
to
was
make
at
the
that
money.
same meeting.
That's
I
right.
remember that very
You
well.
know, and then they were all upset why it didn't fail. Well, everybody left, and
Sitting comfortably on a metal folding chair for 5 hours.
yeah, and a
It was
lot of
still
people,
going on,
yeah, they had kids with them, and people had to go to work, and
right?
but like to Scott's point, there's a couple other cities and towns that I do look at, that they have a streamlined more of a budget where it kind of brings you down this road and it bottlenecks you into making a decision. It doesn't let it linger and go on and on. It kind of forces you to go down these steps and like, hey, if you're going to do this, you're going to go here. If you do this, you go here. And it makes you go to an endpoint to pass a budget. Where I think Coventry, it's just a continuous hamster wheel that can go around and around and around
Right.
until a vote is actually, passed.
Because the example that was shared was where they used petitioning. You had to get X number of signatures, write up what you think should change. It's taken into account, and then there's another petitioning level where you get 200 signatures. This is after the town council has approved the budget. And if you get those signatures in a timely manner with appropriate justification for an amount over $250,000. So nobody's doing this 100.
Right.
You're not gonna let you buy pencils type of thing. Anyhow, it's a great subject. I did a little work on this because I just wanted to kind of line them up almost like a decision flow diagram, like to get away from all the verbiage, like they have to do this and we do this. They have to do this, they do that. And looking at examples, maybe we could come up with something that just will help everybody with still plenty of public input, plenty of public ability to, change something. And I think that's the example again. That was a great example.
I
Yeah.
think Ted mentioned something about the lottery thing, but I think that was in the North Kingstown thing. So
Yeah, I don't remember.
that
There's nothing about a lottery
language,
here.
that language there, I believe, is South Kingstown.
Yeah.
But he did mention,
Okay.
that in North Kingstown, they have, it's like a voter participation thing through lottery. So many people come up and want to present something, say there's a budget there, and then you work to either make the budget go further or you change one direction or the
Interesting.
other. So it's going to be an interesting thing to do, but it's also going to be a hard thing to do. We have to decondition ourselves from just showing up and voting no.
Well,
Otherwise, we're going to be operating on a month-by-month basis forever.
is the operative expectation that a public vote on the budget should be preserved? That the public is entitled to vote on the budget and therefore we should keep it a public vote on town finances?
That's the big question.
Taxation, because
That's the key question.
it's not done that way in most of the country. And the representatives on the town council who take the time to study the issues, ask the questions and do the homework are thus empowered and trusted by the public to make a better decision than the electorate, who most of them are not taking the time to become well-informed to make an intelligent vote.
Yeah, because I think what they laid out here is they provide plenty of opportunity and earlier on than I think when we do it to understand the budget with public hearings. The town manager in this example creates the budget, then the town manager publishes it, and the town council obviously goes through it, makes their adjustments, presents what they call their final budget or a preliminary budget. And then electors in the town can petition to make changes to that preliminary budget. And then there's a final town council budget. The town council approves it with some changes possibly being approved.
Would those petitions be voted on by the public, or is that subject to the town council?
Subject to the town-
accepting or rejecting the proposal?
Yeah, these 25 signature required petitions,
Okay,
town council can approve or reject.
okay.
And then the budget is approved by May 1st, 2022. And then there's a referendum petitions. It's like, people are really adamant about something needs to change, 200 signatures or more with a minimum impact of $250,000. by May 12th. So you got a couple weeks, less than 10 days or so. They need to be verified, the signatures by the 16th. Then there can be an all electors referendum vote. Keep it as it is, include this
Or to
decrement,
add or subtract.
subtract, yeah. So it was really interesting to read that. There's probably all sorts of variations, but
Mhm.
it's a great topic and a good agenda item for us.
As it stands
sure.
right now in Coventry, doesn't the town council work on the budget during workshops prior to the budget happening?
It's similar to this one where it's the town manager's budget that gets presented to the town council with recommendations. Then we go through and ask
Several
questions.
workshops, right?
Yeah, we'll
And
have-
the public has opportunity at that time, if they like or dislike something,
Yeah,
they
every
come in.
work session is a public meeting and there's public comment. But we have two dedicated public presentations and public hearings. One on a weeknight, one on a Saturday morning to provide other people the
There's a
opportunity.
budget
to come.
schedule too that you have to.
It's all in the budget schedule.
Yeah.
Well, the budget schedule isn't set in stone. We could revise it however we want because there is nothing prescripted by law, but that's the tradition that the town has followed. And so we're following that schedule. But yeah, there's a lot of opportunity for public input. And on top of the two public hearings, then you have the financial town meeting, which is the final presentation. And then you have the referendum.
And that has a hard date on it, the financial town meeting. It was the first Tuesday in May.
Yeah, I didn't know that. And
Yeah.
last year it was
I
in
didn't either.
June and this year I scheduled it for the 4th week of May. Oh, well,
Yeah. It's interesting though, because you create the operating budget and the town council and director of planning create the capital budget. You get to review it. Wait, again, this is my quick summary reading of everything here, trying to boil it down for myself. Then they published the budget for public access, the 2 public hearings for Q&A with the public, 2 weeks after publication. Town council, after any new amendments from that Q&A, presents the budget to the public at the financial town meeting. Then this is where it gets interesting. The operating budget fails, retain on a month-to-month basis the budget using current year level appropriations. If both operating and capital budgets fail, town council shall propose an alternate budget to be presented at another financial town meeting, which we did last year, I think that's what we're talking about. We had 2 votes, I think, with an adjusted budget, with a special budget referendum. And then, I mean, basically, if it failed again, it could go on forever.
It's when you revert to state law. You have to hold
Is that
on
right?
to the 12 months.
Okay,
But I don't know if the state law says that we have to propose another one, or if it's just.
you're just level funded.
just level fund.
that's what it refers to. So there is an endpoint.
Well,
Yeah, the level
so
fund is
in
not a good
2020,
endpoint.
I guess or 20 fiscal year 2021, I would make the argument then you only need to have one budget referendum. And if it fails, you're done, you just level fund. But apparently in that year,
Mhm.
there was this belief or emphasis that, hey, we can pass one that's, so they just tried 2 more times. There's no requirement to do it, but when you want to pass a budget to be able to fix whatever, then you're motivated to have these referendums. But I see the referendums as very costly and non-productive. So for fiscal year 2021, you got level funding at the expense of $60,000
In special elections.
in special
votes.
elections. Yeah,
And level funding is actually a budget cut.
right, because you're not keeping up with
You're not keeping up with-
contracts or inflation or
Yeah.
anything.
I was just gonna say that the
Okay.
same thing, level funding is a budget cut. So even if the budget shut down multiple times in a row, we're still going backwards, right? And then we're level funded multiple years in a row. Now we're just growing a larger deficit. Is it unreasonable or even possible to have some type of language that instead of being level funded, instead it's level funded plus some type of percentage, and whether that's tied to like a treasury bond or inflation or something, just to ensure that if we are level funded, we're not going backwards?
Yeah, that's a good thought too, because I mean, we had a huge inflation from year over year. you know?
Yeah.
You have to buy things too. The city has to buy and purchase and pave roads and do all sorts of things. It gets more expensive. How do you handle
You could
that?
propose it, but I don't think it would ever pass.
Yeah.
The charter vote.
Yeah,
Sure.
No one's gonna bind
'cause it's still-
themselves to an
think-
obligatory increase. Everyone wants the option, however fanciful it is.
Actually,
But that's
I
why,
forget how long ago it was, because it was a long time ago, but there was a teacher's contract negotiated tying in their cost of living to consumer price index. And there was a huge fight over getting that passed, but it did end up getting passed. Going back a lot of years.
And inflation or consumer price, they're not always positive either.
Like that.
What's that again, Mike?
I was gonna say, inflation isn't always positive either, you know, or consumer price. There are sometimes that those do go down, or they're negative rather. But I agree, the chance of that getting passed are probably slim. But there's still a detriment with consistent level funding.
but
Sure.
you,
That's it.
Short of establishing a local income tax, we're still gonna deal with the property tax then. Everyone knows that it costs more money to run the schools. And years ago, when I was up in the General Assembly, I was pondering and having some study done on allowing school districts to levy their own tax. I'm not sure how the voters would feel about that. And I'm not sure how the voters would feel about changing from property tax to income tax. Pay as, what was it called? Pay according to your ability to pay, one of those type things. And, you know, you have people that kind of handicaps, you have all kinds of different things that make it hard for people to pay. So if, you know, if this nice young lady who's on Social Security can only pay so much, then she can only pay so much. And if she lives in a house and she can no longer afford to live in the house, it goes up on the market, and somebody moves in with 2 kids and up goes your school budget. And I think that was part of the rationale behind the property tax freeze. I actually had a conversation with a gentleman who called me up. I knocked on his door campaigning, and he called me up and he goes, "Oh, you know, the lady next door pays a whole lot less than me." So I had to explain to him that, well, she pays less because she wants to stay, you know, we have to keep her in her house. And he goes, "Well, you know, she's paying, you know, half as much as I am." I said, "Well, if she sold her house and there were 4 kids that moved in with a family over there, instead of her paying a small amount for education, or you paying a smaller amount for education, what's going to happen is there going to be 4 students that are going to go into the school system at $15,000 to $20,000 a piece. That's $60,000 to $80,000 added to the budget. So that's what will raise your taxes up and not keep them stable." So I remember when they put the tax freeze in, I thought it was a good idea. But we're not doing budget stuff, so
nah,
we're a little off agenda, but we will consider that our personal public comment. I don't know if there's anybody out there that wants to, I see a couple of names out there. I'm not sure if anybody wants to speak up. I don't see any hands raised. But I'm not sure where to go from here. Maybe we should just wait until next week. And maybe Ben can get all this copies of this. So you're gonna enjoy reading this, trust me, because you're gonna see how things were handled, you know, 4 decades ago, 5 decades ago, and how it's handled today. And like I said, most of those changes were all repetitive. You know, how can we make it easier for people to vote? You know, how can we have better, you know, representation, you know, i.e., you know, to nonpartisan, I mean, to at-large seats. And it's interesting. They tried it a few times. So that'll help us in our deliberations when we're looking to move ahead. So is there any other comment on anything, including if you feel like you want to speak as a public member? And if not,
No.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Jim?
Second motion.
I can't make it.
I'll make
I'll make the motion. You make the motion, I'll second the motion.
I'll make the
Motion
motion.
made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I,
Opposed? So moved. Well, a little bit of a quick meeting. There's nothing wrong with those. I really, like having a full crew here too, it just makes it easier.
This piece of paper,
Yeah.
this is Town of Coventry and state, is that how this?
One on top of the other.